This episode is sponsored by Sourcing Playground. Sourcing Playground is an online platform making it easier for brands to connect with compliant, ethical, and sustainable manufacturers. Think Match.com, but for retail. You can post your project for free and let the suppliers come to you. On the platform, you can easily compare quotes and factory profiles to choose the right supplier for your brand. Sourcing Playground are offering a free upgrade to the Fashion Feed listeners, which means your project will only be viewed by the factories and hidden from public view. Go to www.sourcingplayground.com to check it out and mention the Fashion Feed in the chat box. Happy belated International Women's Day. It is the 9th of March, so it's the day after International Women's Day, but it wasn't on Sunday. And to celebrate, Catherine and I are talking numbers. And when I say Catherine, I'm talking Catherine Erdly. And we're really passionate about women being financially independent for our own personal reasons, which we do share in this chat, and why it's so important for women to pay attention to the numbers within their business, what numbers are the ones you should be paying attention to, how to make a sales plan, what even is a sales plan, and to work out your profit margin per unit as well. And so to celebrate, it's a bonus episode which we'll be talking through, and I just really hope you enjoy. I think a lot of our clients can come to us and say, oh, my accountant knows all the numbers, or my dad knows all my numbers. And it's like, no, this is the end of that era. Like, there's no more hiding from your numbers anymore. We really, really want you to take control. We make it super clear to understand. And if you don't understand, then please feel free to let us know. But we just wanted to get across this message about why it's so important for women to be financially independent within their businesses and the benefits and repercussions of that as well. So here's the chat.
Hello there.
Hi. And this is we don't know how to introduce this really, because we're going to make it go viral. We're going to put it in Facebook groups, we're going to do our podcast, but it's a bit of a bonus chat between us really, isn't it, for International Women's Day, or in celebration of it?
Absolutely, yes. And it's a topic that we've probably talked about between the two of us quite a lot, and we just thought it made a lot of sense because International Women's Days get growing in profile and so many people are celebrating it. And it was amazing yesterday on social media, all of the really inspirational and empowering posts about women celebrating other women.
Yeah, and I guess our focus, we do talk a lot about money. Yes. And it was actually Fiona at Bosch Your PR that said, why don't you two get together and talk about why it's important to you? And International Women's Day seemed like quite a good reason to do it, and why it's so important to know the numbers within your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really important is that as much as we love the inspirational, inspiring women supporting other women, that there's an element to which it's about cheerleading each other. That's so important, but it's also about empowering each other in a really concrete way.
Yeah.
Actually build a business that is financially viable. And it's almost like we wanted to do something that was kind of in that celebratory cheerleading mode, but
yes,
also with a little bit more of that kind of, okay guys, this is great, but the reality is it is to an extent a lot about the money.
And that's fine. Because otherwise, what do we say if it's a business or an expensive hobby?
Absolutely.
And we want to have a business.
Yeah, and we're both really passionate about that, about women taking themselves really seriously and owning the fact. Never apologize for being ambitious. Never apologize for wanting your business to be a really viable financial success. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's something that we should celebrate more.
I saw somebody go to a talk at the Wing the other day, and it had one of her slides was aim to make a shit fuck ton of money. And I just quite liked it. It was so blatant, and I screenshot it because this girl was sharing it on her Instagram, but it's true. Like, why not aim to make a load of money? Like, rather than just go, oh, if it does well, or this is what I hear a lot. If it fails, it's fine. It's fine. I don't mind. But that's just like self-protection, I think.
Yes.
And why not just put everything on the table and say, I want this to be a real, incredibly financial success.
Absolutely. And I think also, the difference between, very broad brush, but in general, I think men probably don't spend much time thinking about,
what will other people think?
What will other people think? Or can I be a creative person as well as somebody who's motivated by money? Is it wrong to be motivated by money? And I think that's what we wanted to talk about today, really, was that it's not just okay to want to have a financially successful business, but it's something that we should all really aim for, because it's not just a nice fluffy nice to have. This is real life.
So where should we start?
Well,
we made some notes before.
Yes, we did. And there's a really great one that we love, which is turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality.
Yes.
And I think that is so key, because we can get so easily caught up in the vanity metrics. So we can look at people's Instagram followings, we can look at how they're doing, or we can feel like they're doing so much better than us, and it can make people feel really uncomfortable. Oh, well, why am I not there? But ultimately, it's like eyes on your own business, and what are your sales doing, really?
Yeah. So what was an example? Like, how do you even describe what those numbers are? So let's start with the vanity one to begin with.
So vanity, so turnover would just, would be your total sales, for example. Yeah. So that is, effectively, you can have a business that has £100 million turnover and makes a loss, So the turnover, in a way, of course, we all want to sell more. And of course, in theory, the more you turn over, the bigger the volume you can have in your business, and the better unit costs you can get. That's why, again, in theory, product businesses are very scalable, because the more you sell, the better costs you get. But ultimately, you could sell thousands of items a week and have a business that's losing money.
Because you might plow money into ads, or like your margin isn't big enough, or
exactly.
You're giving customer free shipping, but then you're not including that in your bottom line. And
absolutely, profit margin's probably the biggest one. If you're not making enough money on every single sale, then you are not going to be able to build your business long term. So then it's about two things. It's about the profit that you have when you make the sales, so that what's left over after you take out all of the costs. But it's also about controlling your costs. It's about not plowing everything into your stock, about not plowing everything into a catwalk show if you're not the right size to do that, or
launch party, or
exactly, a launch party, or huge influencer outreach if it's not really got a really solid concrete return on investment. And I do quite often hear people say, I did these things, and they were really expensive, but as long as I'm getting my brand out there, which, yes, to an extent, but there really has to be a limit on the number of things you do in your business. When you start off, you've got to try lots and lots of different things, but you've got to try and really contain how much you're spending on. You want to really minimize the amount of money that you're outlaying on things that may or may not work. You want to try as many things as possible at low or zero cost, and really save your money for when you think it's a really like a measured risk. Like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to work.
And so with regards to like margin and profit, I have an equation. I know we use different ones, but my one is take your cost price, divide by sale price, times by 100 minus 100, and then that will give you your profit as a percentage. And not to be scared that number ends up coming out as a minus, but just ignore that, it's fine. And you want to be making absolute minimum of 50%. And that means that you're only viable for a direct customer business, not actually a wholesale business, which is fine if that's where you want to go.
Absolutely. And some people will be slightly below that, especially if they're buying in from other retailers. So if you predominantly have a wholesale business where you're purchasing from other businesses, then you're going to have a margin there. The sales price of the wholesale goods are set up so that you'll have about that 50% margin. And that, you know, that is the reality. If you're buying products from other people, it's the reason that anybody bothers to manufacture at all, because that you get better profit margins. But then you've got to think about, well, what can you leverage in that model? The advantage you've got is you only have to buy small quantities of everything because you're buying things in. So you have to kind of look at it that way as well. So there's the profit on every sale. But if you're manufacturing yourself and you're having to commit to quantities each time and you're coming out at like 50-55%, then you're kind of in a bit of a tight situation.
And so moving on to sanity. 1 minute, is that sanity? Is profit?
So profit is sanity. So turnover is vanity. So again, you could sell 1,000 items a week, but if you're making 50p or 20p per item, you're not, yes, it looks great. Yes, it might sound really impressive. Yes, you might have a big, you know, following, but ultimately you're not going to have much cash reserves in your business.
And reality is cash.
In reality is cash, absolutely. So the profit piece is about knowing then your profit margin every time you make a sale. It's about controlling the costs in your business. So it's about really making sure that you're not plowing everything into stock, that you've got a stock plan that's related to your sales plan, that you're not constantly spending more than your business can support on various different things that you think may or may not work, that you're being really considered about it. And then sanity or reality, the cash flow. That is mapping out your cash flow. So knowing week on week, okay, this is what my bank account is going to open at. This is the sales I think I'm going to bring in this week. These are the invoices or the bills that are supposed to be going out. Therefore, this is what I'm going to be left with at the end of the week. And mapping that through yourself for yourself, so that any week you can update your bank account balance and see forward what that looks like, which, you know, that is the reality. You know, in theory, you could have a profitable business, but if your cash flow is all a bit off, like you're purchasing your stock way before your sales are coming in, for example, then cash is reality. It's whether or not you've got the money in your account to actually pay for things.
And so if that sounds terrifying to somebody, I don't know how to do any of those things. Like, where would you start? Probably, like price per unit, maybe.
Yeah, I would
make sure you're making money there.
Yeah,
and then
definitely. Because in a way, I mean, this isn't strictly true, but I would say, like, if you've got that building block right, if you've done the analysis and actually you're making 65-70% on every sale, I'm not saying everything follows suit, because you do still have to carefully manage the other pieces, but it's a really great starting point, and it just means there's more cash in the business, there's more profit flowing through. I always talk about cash flow. It's like a flow. It's like, you know, you spend that money out on stock and then you sell it, so the money comes back into you. So you kind of want it flowing. Moving is really, really important. It's also to do with how fast you're moving your stock, because that's another really key way to grow the profitability in your business, is to actually move your stock more quickly than if you buy it all up front and then you've not got no audience to sell it to and you're trying to sort of chip away at it. That's a very difficult financial position to be in.
And I always say it's also quite a difficult mental position to be in as well, that when you're walking past your spare bedroom that's full of boxes of stock, it's just really hard to motivate yourself. So that's why, again, we sort of recommend starting very, very small with your stock. So when it sells out, you're like, yes, go me. Even if it is 5 units, you've sold 5 units. Mentally, you have a lot more energy to put back into moving it forward.
Absolutely. And also you want to always be chasing a little bit. You want to be you don't want to be running out constantly so that you're always disappointing your customer, but you kind of want, that is the line that every retailer is trying to walk. How do you walk the line between chasing the almost like trying to keep up with the sales demands, so that your stock is moving quickly, but then you're not selling out so that the people are getting disappointed. So that's the kind of real balance that you're trying to hit every time with your product business.
But if you're to err on one side or the other, you'd go slightly sell out quicker than have loads of stock for people who might not want it.
Look at Supreme. I know that we always talk about this, but why do people queue up outside Supreme? Because they know if they don't buy it, it's going to sell out. The more you can train your customer that if they don't buy it now, it's not going to be there, that's actually that's how you want your customers trained, really.
Sorry, it froze, but they know it's desirable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
And Supreme is a very successful business model. So, and so where would we go from there? Like, so when you're talking about having that sales, the balance between cash and sales, what would be like a tip to set that up for somebody who would find that really easy to do?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you have to have a sales plan. I think that is the real key to the whole setup, is that you are able to map out by week what you think your sales are going to be. And people often misunderstand sales plans because they think that it's all about, you have to get it right. So if you can't tell exactly how much you're going to sell each week, what's the point of having a sales plan? But what a sales plan does is, if you've got it mapped out by week, what you think is a reasonable estimate for your sales based on how you're currently trading, based on how you're, what you think is reasonable. I mean, you could do it by month. Sometimes a week is too small, especially if you're starting out, because you might have a week where you sell nothing and a week where you sell more. But maybe look at it by month. So if you've got an idea of what you think you're going to sell, then you can start building out, for example, a stock plan. So you might want to say, right, and their stock plans are usually based on the number of weeks sales you want to have in your business. So let's say you want to have 12 weeks worth of sales in your business at any one time in your stock, then you can set that up and set yourself a stock budget. So once you've got a sales plan and then a stock budget, you've started putting controls into place, the amount of money that you're putting into your stock. And also, the other really important thing is, it's very hard to do a cash flow forecast if you don't have a plan for how much cash is going to be coming in.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to manage that reality of the cash in your business, but you don't know how much is going to be coming in at any one time, then it's really, really difficult to do that. So you start off with an educated guess, or a good starting point, what you think is reasonable, and then you trade it. So each month or each week, depending on how often you're doing it, you update it and you say, right, well, actually, I thought I was going to take £1,000, but actually I took £2,000. Okay, great. Well, what does that mean? That means more cash coming in. That means maybe I need to adjust how much stock I'm buying. I need to increase that. And similarly, if you had £1,000 and you actually sold 500, again, you can see, looking forward, okay, well, actually, I really underperformed. So maybe I need to cancel that order or delay that order of stock that I've got coming in to see if I can move it back a few weeks because it doesn't look like I'll need it.
Yeah.
So all of that is about kind of basically managing the money in your business, but you can't do it if you don't have a plan. So because sometimes people say to me, well, I'm just trying to sell as much as I can. So my plan is sell as much as possible. And I think that I totally get that, but I don't think it makes it very easy for you then.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on yourself as well, because you might not actually need to sell as many as you think you do.
Yeah.
So if your overheads are £500 a month, and you're making £10 profit per unit, you know that you need to sell 50 units a month to break even.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're going, I need to sell as many as possible, but it's like, actually, I only need to sell 50.
Yeah.
Maybe that's okay. And then you're like, how many? So then that's what, how many per week? I can't work it out. Maybe like 10 a week.
12.5.
Yeah. And so you're like, okay, that's not too bad. So that's 2 a day. That's not so bad. And so then it actually calms you down a little bit.
Yeah. And also, if you've mapped out and January is a terrible month, you might say, well, I know I need to sell 50 on average, but January, I know I'm only going to sell about 20, but I'm going to really push April, May, June, because those are usually my peak months. So that's the other thing that's really beneficial. Otherwise, what happens is in January, you just sit there tearing out your hair thinking, why am I not selling anything? But actually, you could probably have gone back a year and looked at your figures and seen, well, January is just really hard, and then it picks up from Feb. So it's always work. That's why, you know, having these, you know, planning this stuff out, it doesn't just help you make your business financially viable, but it also helps you as a business owner, because it gives you so much more insight into what's actually happening and gives you a plan and gives you something to work towards. Because we are all quite I think a lot of people are quite target driven, whether or not they like to admit it. It's nice to have something to aim for and to kind of really go, right, I'm going to go out there and do another post today, or I'm going to go on stories and talk about this item, because I know that I'm really determined I'm going to sell 12 tops this week. So, okay, what can I do? What's worked in the past? It shifts your mindset, I think, as well.
Yeah, and actually targets is almost could be relabeled as like purpose.
Yeah.
Because you're like doing all of this, but even if you overperform on your sales plan, you might not realize it unless you've got one. And it's like, if somebody goes, how's it going? And you're like, I actually don't know. Whereas if you go, oh, I beat my sales plan, or actually, like, you know, or I didn't do it, so but I'm going to try this X, Y, and Z. And like we both say, what you talk about sells. And just using as our workshop as an example, because it's the closest thing we've got to a product. We talk about it, we launch it, we make all the sales, we stop talking about it, and then we're like, it's in 2 weeks, and then sales start coming again. And it's just so interesting that actually when your sales are low, you feel like retreating. That's actually, I know it's hard, but it's the worst thing that you can do when your sales are down, is stop talking about it. And I think as well, it's like, you know, you need to know when to pop the champagne cork, right? You need to know when to go, this was amazing, this was the best month I've had so far. I had this goal, I set myself this goal and I beat it. And I think going back to what we were saying earlier, I think we touched on it, but you know, this whole idea, owning the fact that you want your business to make you a ton of money. And that there's nothing, not just nothing wrong with that, but sometimes I know people have this thing about, you know, I don't know if I see myself as a businesswoman, and I think, you know, that's just a term for a woman who has a business. And I think that as women, we owe it to ourselves to be aiming to have our businesses be so successful that we have our financial independence. Because, you know, in terms of why I feel passionate about it, certainly, is, you know, I grew up with a single mother who had 3 children and was in a position where she couldn't afford the childcare for 3 children in order for her to go and work. So she was in a very, you know, she was in a difficult position. And I think a lot of the time, if I'm really honest, one of the reasons I stayed in my corporate job for as long as I could was that I felt like it was really, really important to me that I was able to know that if push came to shove, I could support my family, you know, independently. And I think that that's really had an impact as well on how I build my business. I'm always looking at it as in terms of I'm aiming to, you know, for a certain turnover, a certain revenue, because I want to, you know, there's nothing like being financially independent to give you that freedom. I know, and very similar. It's probably one of the things that we bond about without really knowing it, is that, again, my mum and dad broke up, but she was still financially dependent on him. So from a very, very young age, probably as young as like 5 or 6, my mum was just like, you can never ever get in this position, like as a woman or even as a person, that you cannot be reliant on a man for money. Like I feel trapped, it's scary, and I have no freedom, you know, like I have to ask for money like a child. And I was just like, absolutely not, that is not for me. Like I've seen how it can affect her mentally, and I don't want to put myself in that position. But then going back to a point that you said earlier, is actually being creative and making money. I don't see those two things as separate. Like they can be the same thing, and you don't have to be a poor starving like fashion designer or artist or whatever you are, or a high-flying businesswoman. And we have a lot of people who come to the workshop, like there was one this week who was a banker, that she always had a dream of being a fashion designer. And it's like, can't you be both? Like, use those banking skills that you
Yeah.
have, or analytical skills, and put them into something to channel your creativity. And it is possible. We've seen it like
Yeah.
100% be a possibility. And
Yeah. Stella McCartney is not a poor starving fashion designer.
no, she is not. And yeah, she might have had a little bit of a leg up, but she's doing well. And it's I'm sure she's a very hard worker. And the owner of Zara is one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
The owner of H&M is the richest man in Sweden.
Yeah.
The highest number one taxpayer in the UK is the owner of JD Sports. Like, these people are making money.
Yeah.
So don't ever think that fashion is like a silly hobby, something that you can mess around with. Like,
yeah,
make a good living from it.
Absolutely. And also that, you know, and never think either that it's frivolous to think that you want to be financially successful, because it's not all about you want to go live on the beach or have this like nomadic lifestyle in Bali. I mean, it could be that you want to know that, you know, you've got money in the bank so that if your family was in a tight spot, you could support them. And there's nothing fluffy and frivolous about that. That's pretty much the least frivolous thing you can have. And, you know, and also it's interesting one, because obviously a lot of people build businesses because they want to have that flexibility around their family. So it's, again, balancing that you know, I remember, this is like going way back, but I was reading something about how they talk about women who are maternal and what that means to be maternal. But actually in sort of primate societies, it's the mother with the most resources who's considered the most successful mother. Now, I'm not trying for a million years trying to suggest that you can only be a successful mother if you're financially successful, but what I'm saying is that the two things are not opposed to each other. You know, it's not like I can only, you know, you can be a successful businesswoman and a phenomenal parent and role model, and you know, so it's not about, I think it's, we almost tell ourselves stories about, well, you know, is it right to be ambitious? Is it right to want to be financially successful? And I think it's just worth there being another opinion, which is, yeah, absolutely there is, and it's nothing frivolous, and it's, you know, you can, and it's just another way of being. And I think we should celebrate all types and people and what their ambitions are.
Yeah, and what kind of I was going to say, one of my friends, when she was on maternity leave, that she was desperate to get back to her job and felt really guilty about the fact that she was like, I love her,
yeah,
but she can't talk to me. And actually, not yet. And she felt like her job and her making money was actually part of her identity as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to your point about the fact that it's not just I want to make loads of money. If that is that, again, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the brands that we work with are purpose-driven brands as well. And if you really want to support a homeless charity because that's been affected somebody in your family, and the slogans are to do with that on the t-shirts or the bags, then you can maybe increase your profit or the percentage of donation that you give to a charity if you make more money. And if you feel good about it, then you're more likely, it's likely to spill over into other good things that start happening.
Absolutely, yes. And so that's really, you know, the message is know your numbers, be empowered, own them, get help if you don't know where to start. You know, we both work with businesses that want to be more profitable. There are ways that you can do it, and don't wait for your accountant to tell you how you're doing.
No, I think that's if you were to say like some just real key figures to sum up that people can take away or jot down, what would you say they are?
For sure, I would say know what your average profit margin is, so how much you're making every time you make a sale. And I do have a margin calculator, so when we post this up, it's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/margin calculator. You can just access it, make your own copy, download it. You should have a sales plan for sure. And I would suggest that you know how much stock you've got in your business and how many weeks worth on average that is. So just like an idea of how much stock are you sitting on. And think about setting yourself up a cash flow statement, a cash flow template, so that you can, you know, open with you can know each week what you're going to open with, what you're going to close with. Because too many people tell me that they if they've got money in the bank, they're like, yes, okay, I'm going to buy things. And if they haven't, I mean, I totally get it. I'm no way judging people, because it is so easy to get into that mindset, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can be more control, and then it just helps you. I think, also really, really important to be paying yourself something from your business, even if it's just something really small to start off with. But there's a great book I always recommend, Profit First, which is really all about, you've got to pay yourself from your business, because it's not always good for your business for you to be putting all that money back in, especially if you're buying lots of stock, which is then piling up, because extra stock takes up your mental energy, takes up your money, and it takes up your space. To your point about if you've got a spare room and it's full, then it's not a great place to be.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. I set up a thing, it sounds silly, in January, where I pay myself, this isn't what I actually pay myself, but I pay myself 50p a day every day.
Right.
Just so I'm doing something. Do you know what I mean? Now I've got like 40 quid or something. I'm like, okay. But just even if it is something as small as that, to get into the mindset of paying yourself, it quickly builds up.
Yeah, because our businesses should work for us. Yeah. We're not working for our business, if that makes sense. They've got to work for us, and that has to include rewarding us financially. Otherwise, what's the point? It's there's lots of exciting things about creative businesses, but ultimately they should be making us money.
Yes. Well, that's a great point to end on. And where can people find you?
I am at Future Retail UK on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and I'm the only Catherine Erdly on LinkedIn. Lucky me. And I have my Facebook group, the Female Founders in Retail, which has 850 amazing female businesses in it. And where can we find you, Elizabeth?
I'm at Elizabeth Styles with an I, not a Y. I'm Elizabeth Styles UK on Instagram, on Pinterest. My Facebook group is called The Fashion Feed, nearly at 300, which is exciting, full of, again, incredible small businesses, and also some factories and printers have started joining us in there now as well, so it's quite a nice little networking opportunity. And Elizabeth Styles on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And we both work with people one-to-one, so if you are watching this and thinking, I have no idea where I'm going to start, then
just drop us a DM.
Best way to get chatting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And happy belated International Women's Day.
Happy belated International Women's Day.